you're hearing this right now, I don't know your story, but I know you matter. And I know the world's better with you in it, so stay. When the darkness comes and it feels too much, when the weight on your chest wanna make you give up, just stay, yeah, hold that line. You're a fighter in the war they can't, but your mind gets loud and the nights get cold. When the memories burn and the hurt takes hold, just stay, don't fade away. You're alive, you're enough, you gon' see that day.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Lou Kuhn. I served as a U.S. Army chaplain. My specialty was suicide intervention and prevention. And I'm here on the island of Kauai for one reason. Suicide is a problem on this island, just like it is all around the country. And I've had the privilege this week of working with You Matter Kauai, and our goal is to reduce suicide on the island of Kauai. And so I'm here today with Dana Salazar from You Matter Kauai, and she wants to ask me a few questions. I'm going to be getting on an airplane shortly and heading back to my home state of Atlanta, Georgia, but it has been a pleasure to be here this week. And our goal is to come back because this island needs help. Out of all the counties in Hawaii, this particular island has the highest rate of suicide in Hawaii.
Suicide prevention can be a very difficult subject. What are some common misconceptions people have about suicide?
Well, the first one is we don't realize how prevalent it is. 1 out of 10 people at any given time are having thoughts of suicide, and so that's the first misconception. The other is to think that my son, my child, my daughter, my father, my friend would never have those thoughts. It's a very common thought. And so if we understand that, we can begin a conversation of care to help a person who may be hurting.
Beautiful. Do you want to go in with sharing how you started this work and a little bit about the foundation of Stop Suicide USA?
Yeah, I started Stop Suicide USA in 2012. My oldest son was in the Air Force, I was in the Army, and he asked me the question in 2011, Dad, are you thinking of suicide? And I was, and he recognized that. He'd had 2 hours of intervention training, compliments of the Air Force, and it was enough for my 19-year-old son to know that his dad was in trouble and needed help. And so he asked me the question that 99% of people will never ask, are you thinking of suicide? And that was the turning point for me. And a year later, we formed Armed Forces Mission. That's still our legal name. But today we operate as Stop Suicide USA because we realize that our footprint is much bigger than just veterans and military people. We started off working primarily with veterans and military people. We've trained several military units in the Air Force and in the Army. But today we train people from all segments of society. And we've now trained 31,000 people all across the country. And I'm so glad to be here in the state of Hawaii, on this island, particularly because of the high rate of suicide.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. Did you say 31,000?
Yes, we've trained 31,000 people now. I've written a book and have a curriculum called Listen, Learn, Lead. That's our primary curriculum for the course. And so out of that 31,000, about 500 law enforcement agencies and fire departments. We've trained the 101st Airborne. We've trained the 159th Fighter Wing of the U.S. Air Force. We've trained Homeland Security. And we also train a lot of schools because teachers need this training. Suicide among teenagers is a big topic nowadays. It is the #2 cause of death for teenagers. And so teachers in the public schools and the private schools need to be trained in suicide intervention, because if we can stop suicide at the teen level, it's going to help everybody, because the reality is teenagers are the most resilient group out there. You know, people my age think that they were more resilient than teens are today. But teens are dealing with things that I didn't have to deal with. I didn't have this when I was growing up.
Right.
This is a form of bullying right here for a lot of teenagers. And when I was a kid, you could get away from bullying, But today, kids can't get away from it. So if we can reduce the risk of suicide for teenagers, then that's going to help everybody, because they're the strongest link that we have. So we got to make them stronger, so that the next generation into their 20s, 30s, and 40s will be stronger.
Yes, and I have been blessed to listen to Dr. Lou Kuhn for 3 days, I believe, in a row. So I am also getting trained up.
Right.
Right? And hopefully can help resonate with the rest of Kauai through the learning and teachings that I've
That's
been
the goal.
gaining.
We've created a ripple here. We've thrown
Yes.
a pebble in the pond
Yes.
here, so to speak.
Yes.
And my goal, hopefully, is that we've had probably 100 people that have been
Yes.
in our group over the past week. That they would maybe tell other people, and we can come back and do some more. Get involved with law enforcement, get involved
Yes.
with the teachers here. Our course is approved for law enforcement CE credit. It's also approved for licensed professional counselors. I've got a doctorate in counseling, but I got very little training in suicide intervention. It was the military that trained me in suicide intervention, far and above what I had learned in my doctoral studies in counseling. And so the average person just doesn't know what to do
Right.
when they're presented with someone who might be having those thoughts of suicide. So if we can come back and take those 100 people that were with us before and get even more, we just create a ripple effect that strengthens this island and makes us more resilient than ever.
Yes. So in your training, you deep dive into 5 core values that are essential for a successful suicide intervention. But one in particular catch some participants off guard. Your 3rd core value is suicide makes sense. Can you elaborate on that for us?
We are inside our head, and I work with a lot of veterans. I was a soldier. I suffer from post-traumatic stress myself, and we get fixated on the stuff that's right here. Well, you can go to the desert and fight a war and come home, and you're separated from the enemy after that. But there's an enemy inside our head. There's a battle going on. There's a war going on inside our head. And it makes sense many times that suicide is the only option. And it's not really an option, it's an option ender. It ends all of our options. And so our goal is to help people understand that there are better options.
Yes.
You've got the option to stay alive. And so that's what we want people to understand, and that's what we're trying to help people to get to.
Perfect. So what are some particular steps that a person can take if they have concerns that a friend or family member might be thinking about suicide?
Well, the first thing is awareness,
Yes.
being aware that maybe it's a high school student that was making A's and now all of a sudden they're making C's and D's and something's changed, or maybe they're not hanging out with their friends anymore. Or for adults, maybe they're not going to their church events like they used to, or maybe they're not going to the bowling league like they used to, and they've backed away from the things that they used to enjoy. That's always a big thing. My son asked me, he said, "Dad, you're not working out anymore."
Yes.
And I've always worked out, and I trained my boys to work out. And he said, "Dad, you're not working out anymore." He recognized that I wasn't doing something that I've always enjoyed doing.
Right.
And I had no reason for stopping. It wasn't like I was hurt. I just stopped. And so he started a deep dive from that point. He said, "Dad, I'm concerned about you. I know you went through this and you went through that. And I know that Chad got hurt, his younger brother. And he had to be life flighted to the hospital. He got burned over 90% of his arms and half of his face. And I think of everything that I've been through, that was probably the most traumatic for me, because it happened on my watch when I was at home and my wife was at the grocery store, and I felt responsible, like a lot of my soldiers who feel responsible for one of their battle buddies getting killed in the war. They take it onto themselves, and I felt responsible for that. And so I began to spiral. And thankfully, my son had gotten 2 hours of training in the Air Force, and it was enough for him to know Dad's in trouble. He needs some help. And so He engaged me in that conversation. So that's the other thing. We've got to have awareness, and then we've got to be willing to engage people in the conversation. As I shared in my classes, you came to 3, so
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
My objective is that when you leave the class, you are ready, willing, and able. I can only help you with 2 of those. You can be ready, you should be ready, and you should be able, but you have to be willing to engage in that conversation. You have to be willing to step in to the fray, so to speak, and talk about the tough subject that frankly 99% of the people will never talk about because we're afraid of all the myth behind asking that question.
Right.
And really, it sounds like a morbid question, but it's really, it's a life-giving question.
Yes.
And you can preface it. You know, sometimes when people are going through bad things like you're going through, they do have thoughts of suicide. And so what does that do? It normalizes the next question.
Yes.
Other people have had that thought. You're not alone in that thought. Other people have had that thought. So sometimes when people are going through things like you're going through, they have thoughts of suicide, and just pause for a second and let it sink in. And then just say, so I'm just wondering, are you having thoughts of suicide? And if we've taken time to build rapport, then it's just like a light switch. If the wires are connected to the light, we turn that light on. And that's what rapport does. And if we've taken that time to do that, and we ask them in a caring way without being frantic,
Right.
but just say, are you thinking of suicide? I'm just wondering. They're probably going to say yes. And that takes us back to the first core value. I've done over 2,000 suicide interventions. I've never met anybody that really wanted to die. Suicide is not the result of wanting to die, and you know that from the class.
Yes.
It's always related to some type of loss. And it's not my job to judge what that loss is. For example, I lived in the country for a while. I had dogs, and we loved our dogs, and frankly, one got ran over, one got eaten by a wolf. I mean, so we bury our dogs and the kids cry, and it's a sad day. And I've never had thoughts of suicide because of that, but I've had veterans who've lost their service animal, and they were suicidal because that was the only thing keeping them alive. Their life had a purpose through that dog.
Yes.
The dog was taking care of them, but they're also taking care of the dog. And so that's when we lose our purpose, we perish. That's what the good book says. And so we've got to help a person to find their purpose again.
Absolutely.
And that's what will keep us alive. And for me, it was my son saying, Dad, are you thinking of suicide? And I realized other people are having these thoughts too. And a year later, we formed our organization, and now we've trained 31,000 people, and I've done over 2,000 suicide interventions. And the neat thing is we've done some stats, some data collecting. 58% of those 31,000 have also done at least one suicide intervention, and many have done dozens. And so thousands of lives are being saved because of that ripple effect.
Yes.
And that's what I would like to see on this island.
Yes.
Instead of this island having the highest suicide rate, what if it had the lowest suicide rate?
Yes.
Because it does skew the average. And you guys are better than Georgia. You are 28th in the state, so that means 27 other states are better. But what if you were number one on having the lowest suicide rate? This is already an island. This is already a state that a lot of people love to come to.
Yes.
But you would be having conferences in this state for mental health, because they would be saying, what did y'all do in Hawaii to turn it around so that you're the best state in the country? You want to take a guess on which state is the best in the country?
Wow.
It's going to surprise you.
Montana?
Montana's actually the worst right now.
No.
Yes. Wyoming and Montana and Alaska. I'm actually going to be going to Wyoming in March because of my 6th grade teacher who lives there now, because she was actually the one that proofread my first book, and she realized what I was doing for a living, and she was the one who inspired me to be a writer when I was in the 6th grade. And so we're going to be going to Casper, Wyoming in March because they were #1 last year. And now it's Montana. The year before that it was Alaska. But the #1 lowest suicide rate is typically fought between New Jersey and New York, believe it or not.
New Jersey and New York. New York was my very first thought, and I said, no way, it's a city. So I thought the widest open spaces, and I guessed.
You guessed wrong.
I guessed the complete opposite.
Well, and that's where myth is important.
Yes.
We talk a lot about myth in
Yes.
our workshops and how myth can be deadly. You know, just the myth of thinking that December is the worst month,
Right.
right?
Right.
When really it's usually April, May, and June. And so April, May, and June, especially for young people, because a lot of transitions are going on in the month of May, particularly. Graduating, not graduating, having to stay back a year for another school year, or having to move. We talked about this in the class. I had a situation where a young man took his life in his junior year, 2 days before school let out, because he found out he was going to have to move to another community. I've been with my friends for 12 years going through school. Now I'm going to have to start over in my senior year. And so that was a stressor for him that he couldn't handle.
Right.
And the other problem was he had told a friend that he was going to kill himself. And he showed the friend where he was going to kill himself. And that 17-year-old boy tried all weekend to keep his friend safe. And the young man ended up taking his life on early Monday morning before school started back. The problem there was that young man, the friend, had not told anybody else. And so, as you know from our class, we teach
Yes.
parents all the time, and I would say this to any parent that's listening today: have a caring conversation with your kids and talk to them about what loyalty means, because loyalty doesn't mean I keep secrets, as you learned in the class.
Absolutely.
Loyalty means I keep you safe. Secrets can kill people,
Yes.
especially for young people. So a young
Yes.
person, we taught it in the military. If you see something, say something. We taught that for terrorism. You
Yes.
know, if you see
Yes.
something, say something. But the same principle applies with suicide intervention. Parents, tell your kids, if your friends are hurting and they're suicidal, don't keep it to yourself. Let me know.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know what else to do, then call 988. That's the crisis
Yes.
intervention line. It's nationwide, and let's get some help. And if it seems imminent, and that person is standing there on the proverbial bridge, so to speak, or they've got the weapon or they've got the means of hurting themselves, you might need to bypass 988 and go straight to 911 and get them there immediately. Because 988 is normally counseling and assessment. And then if necessary, they roll out. But 911 is immediate. And hopefully the first responders here have been trained in crisis intervention training. That's one of the things that we do in order to know how to respond. I will say this, that nationwide, only 5% of first responders have been trained in crisis intervention training. So we need more of them to be trained, especially in this area of suicide intervention,
Yes.
because we're talking about life and death. This is a life and death issue. And if we understand that intervention saves lives,
Yes.
and it really does, it has greater efficacy than CPR. Do you know CPR?
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
I thought you were one that raised your hand. So CPR is great, and it might save a life, but it doesn't have the efficacy of suicide intervention. And so out of the 2,000 people that I've personally worked with, 100% are still alive, or they did die of natural causes, but not suicide. And that's not in our class. Intervention saves lives.
That's right.
And it really does. So that's why we need to get the training. People don't intervene because they haven't been trained.
Right.
I saw in a firehouse that I was working in a great motto, and it's probably in a lot of firehouses. We always default to our level of training.
That's
We
good.
always default to our level of training. Therefore, we must train. That's why we did the simulation exercises with you guys, and it's tough. I mean, your blood pressure is going up in the class
Yes.
because I put you on the spot.
Yes.
Dennis and I were talking about that today, you know, about how we put people on the spot. But if we can do it in the class,
Yes.
then we'll do it out in the world.
Yes.
And a life will be saved. Again, that goes back to our first core value. Suicide is not the result of wanting to die. It's the result of loss. And when we intervene, when we're willing to have a courageous time of conversation and discussion and ask those difficult questions, that's the installation of hope.
Yes.
And so that's what we want to do here on the island of Kauai.
Yes.
It has been a blessing. This is my second home now.
I love it.
I love you guys. I want to come back. And so I would say to anybody listening, I hope that you'll help us to get back here. We want to come back and train even more people. And if you are struggling with thoughts of suicide, ask for help. It doesn't mean that you're a coward. Suicide is actually a courageous thought. If you're having that thought, it's a courageous thought to think that you could kill yourself. It's just not the most courageous thought.
Absolutely.
The most courageous thought is to ask for help and get the help that you need. And if you don't know what else to do, call 988. And there are people on this island now that have been trained. So I'm asking you guys to be the eyes and ears for 988 if you need to be. And if you don't know what else to do, when you find yourself in that position, you can call 988 and they can help walk you through to make sure that people stay safe.
And how can we get more information? If someone is out there listening to this and just wants to dive in a little deeper, how can we get them more
our
information?
organization is StopSuicideUSA.org. And then I would also encourage people, if you want to learn more, we have video training on our website as well. That'll be, we've got a brand new series that'll be posted next week. But I would also encourage people to check out the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. That's AFSP.org. That's a nationwide organization. They have training. Be familiar with the 988 number. You can also call them for particular resources that might be available specifically in your community. It's good to know who the folks are that are dialed in with 988 because sometimes you can just call them directly. But AFSP is a big one that I encourage people to look at, and then for us specifically, it's StopSuicideUSA.org.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr.
And good to be
Lou.
with you.
Some days I'm tired, I can barely stand. Life feels heavy, more than I planned. But you said I'll never walk away, so I hold on to what you say. Lord, I'm not okay, but I'm still here. You see my pain, you catch my tears. The world moves fast, but you stay near. Lord, I'm not okay, but I'm still here.